Hello there, you're watching the press preview, our first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. So it's time to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Mail's consultant editor, Andrew Pearce, and the Daily Mirror's associate editor, Kevin Maguire. So a very good evening. Nice to see you both. And you will be with us up until around midnight. So we'll speak to you in just a moment. First, though, let's check in on what's on the front pages for tomorrow morning and the end of a 6-year ordeal for the British-Iranian hostage. The Metro has the headline, Nazanin jets home. It's The Guardian's lead story as well, picturing Nazanin there on the plane. The Daily Telegraph quotes her husband's words to their young daughter, "Mummy really is coming home." The Daily Mail does something similar with "Mummy's home at last." And the Mirror puts it, "Home for a nice cuppa." The Express too pictures Nazanin on the cover with the headline, "The smile that says I'm free." The Financial Times, meanwhile, has word of apparent progress in talks between Ukraine and Russia aimed at achieving peace. While the Star says that over £1.5 million has been raised to put Vladimir Putin on a rocket and shoot him into space. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code that you can see on screen during the programme, you can check out all those front pages for yourself of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And so here with me, Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. Good to see you both on an evening where there is some good news on many of the front pages. Andrew, really seeing these pictures across the papers, you picked out the Daily Mail, your own paper, to start with, of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe sitting on a plane, taking her away from Iran after 6 years in detention and after a tense 24 hours as well. It is such a pleasure, isn't it, to see a sign of pure positivity amidst all the gloom of recent news.
Yeah, and it's a lovely photograph of her. Look how she's smiling because she's feeling liberated. She knows she's almost there now. But the mummy's home at last is a very human touch because it must have been, apart from being incarcerated in that prison for 5 years, she then was under effective house arrest in her parents' home, not to be able to see her daughter. Her daughter was 2, I think, when she got locked up. She's going to be reunited. It's going to be a very emotional reunion, isn't it? And it's going to be very difficult for the daughter too, because she hardly knows her mum now. She's kept in touch with telephone conversations and through the phone. But to be a fly on the wall for when they are reunited. And Richard is the dad. Is a most fantastic guy. Kevin and I have met him many, many times in various TV studios. He's been the most articulate advocate for his wife, and he's been heroic because he's had to combine his job with being a single parent too, with keeping up the pressure on the government, which also included last year, if you remember, a 3-week hunger strike. He is a remarkable man, and it's just fabulous to think how excited he must be now to know he's getting his family back.
Absolutely. And at the front of the Daily Telegraph as well, that same picture of Nazanin, that's her on the flight from Muscat. She went to Oman, first of all, before she's due to land in the next few hours. Their headline as well, "Mummy really is coming home," reflecting Richard Ratcliffe's words, Kevin. And a lot of questions today, people welcoming the news, but also asking why it's taken so long. How much difference do you think that Richard Ratcliffe himself has made to galvanising the government and bringing together some kind of deal?
I think a huge amount in keeping the case in the public eye, defying Foreign Office advice, which was essentially keep quiet, keep out of sight, don't do anything, we will deal with it. And he knew that would have just ended absolutely nowhere. And Richard Ratcliffe, as Andrew said, is just a remarkable guy, absolutely brilliant campaigner. Saw him on his hunger strike in Whitehall when he was outside the Iranian embassy countless times, absolutely tireless, as were the family of Anousheh Shuri, who was also coming home, going to be reunited too. But you've got to think, how did it go on for so long? How how were mistakes made along the line? And Jeremy Hunt, who was a foreign secretary, it's happened under Liz Truss's watch. Fortunate in one way, but also she deserves credit as Tulip Sadiq, the Labour MP who represents the Ratcliffes, who has been brilliant herself, acknowledged Truss's role in making direct contact with the Iranians, the foreign minister, try and reset relations after there was a new government about 6 months ago in Tehran. But Jeremy Hunt, my foreign secretary, he said back 4 years back that you could see immediately the link with Britain's unpaid debt, the near £400 million for the undelivered tanks going back to the end of the Shah's reign in the 1970s. And why did we not get there quicker? Because Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, it's relief, as Andrew said, beaming freedom. But she's had 6 years of absolute hell. And I remember the moment she sent Gabriella home, because, of course, her daughter was with her when she was arrested at Tehran airport. She'd taken her to see her parents. And she sent her back to Britain, because originally she was with her parents and would visit her in jail. But then she took the decision to get her to safety. But that, for a mother, must have been an almighty wrench, because, of course, you always want to do what's best for your child, but you also want to keep them close. And to send Gabrielle, who's now 7, ahead to London, she must have been counting the days for years.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's take a look at the Guardian's front page as well, shall we, Andrew? Zaghari-Ratcliffe released after 6 years in Iran jail. But as Kevin was saying there, we should remember that Anousheh Ashouri, also on that flight, arrested in 2017, also accused of spying, also released and on that same flight back too. But the Guardian also reminds us that there is also a third, well, it says dual national here. I think they're tri-national. I think they have British, Iranian and American nationality, Andrew, don't they? Released from prison, but not released from Iran.
No, and their feeling, while all attention naturally is focused on Nazarene, because she's a mum, she's a woman, that he has been overlooked and neglected, and it's hard not to agree with that. They must be, while the family of him will be feeling thrilled that Nazanin and the other guy are on their way back, it must be very frustrating that while he's out of prison, he's still in Iran, and they'll want to get him home as quickly as possible. Now, maybe Liz Truss has had this breakthrough with her foreign minister counterpart in Iran. Perhaps she can now secure that one too. I think she's done well, actually. It's easy to say that Tulip Sadiq, the local MP, has been very good, but there's no doubt Liz Truss, when she became foreign minister, she made Nazanin a priority. It was one of the first things she did on her first day as foreign secretary. She really, really wanted to get it sorted. And effectively what we've done, we've paid a ransom. Now, the government will never admit that, because we don't pay ransoms to hostages, but we have paid a ransom because Nazanin was kidnapped. She was kidnapped by the Iranian state on trumped-up charges, and we paid a ransom and got her out. And I suspect that was part of the hold-up. The government did not want to be seen to be paying a ransom.
Do you think it's fair to characterise it like that, Kevin? I mean, Liz Truss was at pains to stress that this was not money that was going in cash in any way. It was going in the form of humanitarian aid. It wasn't going to be a problem as far as sanctions or money laundering regulations were concerned. They'd obviously gone to some effort to make sure that the payment was made in an appropriate way.
Yeah, I think that's just a bit of cover, really. Once it's there, they can spend on whatever they like. But the reason I would say is not a ransom, although I agree that they were held hostage, and it was clearly linked to the 400 million, or near 400 million, is because it was a debt. It was a debt that Britain should have repaid many years earlier. We owed the money. Jeremy Hunt has stressed that, but you've really got to feel sorry for the family and Murad Tabaz himself, because he was born in Hammersmith in London. But as you say, he is a tri-national. He also has a US citizenship. And so the Iranians see him as an American and separate to the deal with Britain. And reading in The Guardian, Patrick Winter, who covers foreign affairs for them, is very, very well informed and very, very thoughtful and measured, says the Foreign Office actually tried to include Murad Tabaz in the deal, but they couldn't get anywhere. So in the end, they've got the two out, but I'm sure there will be very, very heavy hearts on that there is somebody else there who has been left behind.
Yeah, released from jail, at least we know that, and obviously everyone keeping their fingers crossed for him too. Let's move on to the situation in Ukraine. We've only got a few minutes left, and obviously still a huge area of concern. The front of the Financial Times, Andrew, has an interesting article, doesn't it, which talks about a possible plan that could form a basis for peace talks at the moment. So what does it tell us?
Well, I mean, it's a long way off, I think. But I mean, at least both sides are talking, and it's all about the carve up of territory. Now, the idea being that Putin gives up the territory he's encroached on, gained during this war, and probably just keeps the Crimea and the stuff he annexed in 2014. And of course, this will all be linked to Ukraine giving up its commitment, its wish to join NATO. But I don't. But is Putin really going to give up the territory that he's lost thousands of people fighting over? I don't know. But that's what it's all about at the moment, where they are talking, and that's got to be encouraging. And I'm sure Zelensky, that extraordinarily inspiring Ukrainian president, will want a deal if he can do one.
And Kevin, that talking does continue, but so do the bombs too. The front of the Telegraph covers this hideous story, the reports that Russia has bombed a theatre, where the suggestion is amongst local Ukrainians that around 1,000 people could have been sheltering.
No, absolutely. If the talks are the hope, this is the horror, and the horror continuing across much of Ukraine. And look, on that theatre, as you say, the figures seem to vary from 1,000 to 1,200 families, mainly children, sheltering there. Written on the building in Russian that it was housing children. You dread to think now what's going to follow if it has been hit, and it looks like it has, because we know this time last week we were discussing the hospital and what had happened there, and of course there was that picture of the very pregnant woman being carried out on a stretcher, and then you learn later that she and the baby both died. No, look, these are war crimes, unquestionably. Now, Joe Biden, the US president, said Putin was a war criminal. Putin and the Kremlin seemed to have got rather upset about that. Well, what else can you call bombing and shelling very urban areas, whether it's hospitals, theatres, houses, whatever, or shooting people in a bread queue? I mean, this is just utterly, utterly horrific.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew and Kevin, we're out of time for this particular section, but you are staying with us, as I say, until just before midnight. So I will see you again at the top of the hour at 11. For the moment, though, thank you.